Hello friends, a warm welcome to the online session of research methodology. In this session, we are going to learn sampling techniques and its use in the research result. So friends, this is a very important topic in order to learn research methodology. So if we want to learn it very well, we have divided this session into two parts. In the first part, we have covered the meaning of sampling and the various methods of probability sampling, and in the second part we have covered the methods of non-probability sampling. So I request you all to watch and listen this video very carefully so that you can understand what is the importance of sampling and how various sampling techniques are used for the best research work. So let us start with the session. As I said, in this particular session we are going to learn sampling. First of all, why do we need to learn the sampling and better techniques of sampling? There are certain types of errors, survey errors which are called. If such errors take place, the result of your research would not come as per the expectation, or there may be the mistakes in the research work. In order to prevent this kind of errors, sampling must be done in an ideal manner. If sampling is faultful, the research work will also be a faultful. So in order to prevent this kind of errors, sampling techniques must be selected in an ideal manner. Now let us learn what kind of errors can take place. The first one is the coverage error. Now what do we mean by coverage error? See, the picture is self-explanatory. It explains that when you are taking the sample and you collect the sample according to your convenience, but certain part which must be covered into the sample are excluded from the frame, and when such portion is excluded, the result of the research may not be the ideal or may not be true. So this is considered as a coverage error. Second kind of error which may take place is non-response error. Friends, when you want to collect the data and you call for the response of the respondent which is included into the sample, but the person does not give the response, or he or she may not respond to your questions, or as a result the response is not received, and when response is not received, the result of the research work may not be the ideal one. So that kind of error is considered as a non-response error. Another type of error which may take place is sampling error. Friends, when chance the differences from the sample to sample, that means from one sample to another, the chances of sampling error may be different. But when such kind of error take place in which the sample is not taken in an ideal manner, in that case also the research work may not give the true result. Another kind of error is measurement error. When questions are not properly framed, and as a result the answers will also be faultful. When your questions are bad questions, or they cannot give the answer according to the requirement of the research work, as a result the um, research work will not give you the better result. So that kind of error is considered as a measurement error. Now these four kind of errors may take place if sampling is not done in proper manner. So in order to prevent these errors, we need to apply an appropriate technique of sampling. So first of all, let us learn what do we mean by population, and then we will learn what do we mean by sample. So it is written in front of you that population is the collection of elements which has some or other characteristics in common. Number of elements in the population is the size of population. See, the collection of elements which have some common characteristic. The collection of people having certain common characteristics. So for example, if you want to analyze the attitude related to the competitive examination of commerce graduates, so all those commerce graduates are having equal characteristics, and all those commerce graduates will be considered as a sample, as a population for our research work, because we want to analyze the attitude of the graduates of commerce. So all those graduates of commerce field are considered as the total population. They are having common characteristic. What is the common characteristic? All of them are graduate in commerce, and we want to analyze their attitude towards the competitive examination. So if there are 5,000 commerce graduates, so 5,000 is the size of our population, because we want to make the analysis of all of them. But friends, now it is not possible for us to analyze the response of each and every person out of the total population. We cannot ask 5,000 people related to their attitudes towards the competitive examination. So it is not possible for us to analyze all of them. So in order to come to a conclusion, we need to take small part out of this 5,000. So when you collect the small part, that is considered as a sample. See, the definition is written here. Sample is the subset of population. So 5,000 students, that I said 5,000 commerce graduate is considered as a population as a whole, but we are not able to analyze all 5,000 people. So through a process, we will select some number out of that. Say for example, we have selected a sample of 10%. Out of 5,000, we will analyze only 10% student. That means 500 students will be analyzed. So that 500 is considered as a sample, and which is this process of selecting sample is known as sampling. And the number of elements which are included in the sample are considered as a sample size. In our example, as I said, out of 5,000 commerce graduate, we have taken 10% sample. That 10%, that is 500, is our sample size. So sample size means out of the total population, the number of respondents that you have selected is considered as the sample size. Out of the total number of population, out of this total population we have selected, say for example, this is the total population of 5,000 students of commerce graduate. Out of that we have taken 10%. So this 500 is our sample, and this 500 is known as sample size. The process of selecting the sample is known as sampling. Now let us see the types of sampling. As I said at the beginning of this lecture, there are two main types of sampling. One is probability sampling and another is non-probability sampling. Let us understand what do we mean by probability sampling and what is non-probability sampling. Probability sampling, when every element in the target population or universe, or we can say sampling frame, has equal probability of being chosen in the sample for the survey being conducted. When every element or every audience has equal opportunity of being selected, every person has equal opportunity of being selected in the survey, then that kind of sampling technique is known as probability sampling. On the other hand, non-probability sampling, when every element in the universe or sampling frame does not have equal probability of being chosen in the sample. Here there is equal probability of selection, but here no equal probability of selection in the sample. When there is no equal probability, it is considered as non-probability sampling. Next one, this method, that is probability sampling method, is very much scientific, operationally convenient, and simple in the theory. This is very much scientific because it gives equal chance to all the elements. It gives equal chance to all the members of the audience. So it is very much scientific and operationally convenient and simple theory. But on the other hand, non-probability sampling, it is operationally convenient and very much simple theory. Now the result may be generalized. When every element has equal chance, it means that the result derived from such kind of sampling may be generalized. It means that the conclusion drawn from such kind of sampling would be applied to the whole universe, because you had given ideally equal chance to all the members of the audience. But in case of non-probability sampling, we had not given equal chance, we had rather given unequal chance to the elements. So the result derived from such kind of sampling may not be generalized, the conclusion drawn may not be applicable to the whole population. Now another thing that you must remember is, popularly it is known as probability sampling, but its correct name is probabilistic sampling. Probability sampling is also known as probabilistic sampling, and non-probability sampling is also known as non-probabilistic sampling. So you need to remember these two names also. Probability sampling is otherwise known as probabilistic sampling, and non-probability sampling is also known as non-probabilistic sampling. So these are the two major types of sampling. Now let us learn sampling methods. There are two major types, as I said earlier: probability sampling and non-probability sampling, otherwise known as probabilistic sampling and non-probabilistic sampling. Now in case of probabilistic sampling, there are four different methods. First one is simple random sampling, then systematic sampling, then stratified sampling, and then cluster sampling. In case of non-probabilistic sampling also, we have convenience sampling, quota sampling, judgment sampling, and snowball sampling. So these are all the methods of collecting sample from the universe. Now out of this, as I said earlier, in this part of lecture we are going to learn probabilistic sampling, various methods of probabilistic sampling. So let us start with probability sampling. The first technique is simple random sampling. Friends, the name itself suggests that it is simple random sampling. Now what do we mean by simple random sampling? We do not use any scientific technique here, but every element has the same probability of selection, and every combination of element has the same probability of selection. Every element is given same probability, everyone has a same chance or equal chance of being selected in the sample. So this is known as sample or simple random sampling. So the picture itself is very much explanatory. This is the whole universe, and out of this whole universe everyone is given equal chance. You can see all the elements are given equal chance of being selected in the sample. So this kind of sampling method is known as simple random sampling, where every element has equal chance or equal opportunity of being selected in the sample. This is simple random sampling. Now under the probability sampling itself, another technique or another method is stratified sampling. Now friends, what do we mean by stratified? Stratified or strata Stratified word is derived from strata. Strata means the group, and on the basis of grouping we may find out the samples. Let us learn. See, the first of all, the whole population is divided into subpopulation and subjects are selected randomly. The whole population is once divided into subpopulation, and out of this subpopulation the subjects are selected randomly. So the whole population may be divided into different groups, and every group will be considered as a strata. Homogeneity within the group and heterogeneity across the group. These groups may be homogeneous or heterogeneous. On the basis of that, the group will be created. So for example, we have the whole population of all postgraduates. These are the all postgraduates. We want to make survey over all these postgraduate candidates. This is our population. Now this population is divided into two parts. The first one is all those people who are having only master's degree, and second is all those people who are having masters besides PhD degree also. So this is our one stratum, this is second stratum, and out of these two we have selected here the sample. So whole population is divided into subpopulation, two subpopulations, and from these two subpopulations we have selected sample. So the whole population, when it is divided into groups, it is considered as one stratum, this is second stratum, and out of these two stratum we have selected the sample. So this kind of sampling method is known as stratified sampling. Our next technique is cluster sampling. Now let us understand what do we mean by cluster sampling. See here, the definition is given. Cluster sampling is defined as a sampling technique in which the population is divided into already existing groupings, or we can say clusters. Already existing groupings. Friends, what is the difference between that stratified and this cluster? In stratified, we had prepared groups according to our requirement, but here in cluster sampling the groups are already existing. Cluster sampling, groups are already existing. Then a sample of cluster is selected randomly from the population. The term cluster refers to natural but heterogeneous intact grouping of the members of the population. The most common variable used in the clustering population are the geographical area or the buildings or the schools. On the basis of geographical area, say for example, people residing in area X, or people residing in building B, or people or the students studying in XYZ school. On the basis of that we prepare the group, and that group is known as the cluster. Heterogeneity of the cluster is an important feature of an ideal cluster sampling design. See, from the diagram you can understand that these are the clusters. This is one cluster, this is two, cluster 3, cluster 4. Out of these clusters we have selected the sample. Now cluster sampling can again be divided into three sub methods. First one is single stage cluster sampling, another is two-stage cluster sampling, and then comes multi-stage cluster sampling. Let us understand them one by one. The first one, as I said, single stage cluster sampling. The name itself is very much suggestive. Single stage cluster sampling means here we will prepare the cluster on one stage only, and out of that one stage we will find out the sample. So for example, there are 361 nurses working at 31 hospitals and clinics in region 4. We are making the survey of nurses who are working in region 4 in 31 hospitals. We wish to interview a sample of these nurses. Now in order to make the research work, we want to interview these nurses. Now how this single stage cluster work? select a random sample of hospitals or clinics. So for example, out of 31 hospitals, we have selected 5 hospitals, and out of these 5 hospitals, interview all nurses employed at the 5 selected institutions. First, we selected 5 hospitals out of 31. That was our first stage. And from that first stage, we have interviewed all the nurses. So that is known as single stage cluster, because we created one stage. First, 31 hospitals, and out of these 31 hospitals, we selected 5 randomly. Out of these 5 hospitals, we interviewed all the nurses. This is known as single stage cluster sampling. Now comes two-stage sampling. Two-stage cluster sampling is also there. First, we can repeat the example. Stage 1, select a sample of 9 hospitals. Suppose we, out of 31 total population of hospital, we have selected 9 hospitals or clinics. Now selection is proportional to the size. Under stage 2, we will select sample of 4 nurses from each selected institution. Now this is second stage. Under first stage, we selected 9 hospitals. In the single stage clustering, we interviewed all the nurses working in 5 hospitals. But in two stage cluster sampling, we selected 9 hospitals first. Out of these 9 hospitals, under second stage, we are not interviewing all those nurses, but we are interviewing only 4 nurses out of these 9 hospitals. So this is the two stage cluster sampling. As I said, this one cluster is selected, but all people in this cluster are not interviewed. 1, 2 and 3, these 3 are interviewed. Under cluster number 4, only 1 is interviewed. Under this cluster, we have interviewed these 2. So that is the two stage clustering. First, we divide the whole population in one stage, and in the second stage, that sample is also subdivided. That is considered as two stage sampling. Next comes multi-stage sampling. Now what do we mean by multi-stage? So for example, under one stage and two stage, we divided the population according to stage 1 and then stage 2. Now what do we mean by multi-stage sampling? Let us understand. Stratify the whole population by region of a country. For each region, stratify by urban, suburban and rural, and take a random sample of the communities within those strata. First, we stratified the population according to the region. So for example, Gujarat region, out of this Gujarat region, urban population, suburban population and rural population. So first, the whole country is divided as per the state. That is one stage. From the state, it is divided into 3 again: urban, suburban and rural. Now these are also divided. Now divide the selected communities into the city blocks as clusters and sample some blocks. Out of this urban area, we have again divided into city blocks. Suburban area again divided into blocks, and rural area is again divided into the blocks. Now out of every block, we can identify the sample from the fixed area. So it is multi-stage. First stage, the whole country is divided into states, and second stage, the states are divided into urban, suburban and rural area. Under third stage, we have divided urban area into the blocks, suburban area into the blocks and rural area into the blocks. Now out of the blocks, we have selected the fixed area, and from that fixed area the sample is selected. So multi-stage process is followed here. That is why it is known as multi-stage sampling. Now let us see the example of multi-stage sampling. See here, we can see this is the total population. Now the total population is divided into the clusters. These are the clusters, and then clusters are divided into the stratum. These all are the stratum, and then all stratum are divided into the items. Now these items are our sample. We will make survey upon them. So this is known as multi-stage sampling. Next one is a systematic sampling. Systematic sampling, friends, the name itself suggests that it is very much systematic. Now what do we mean by systematic sampling? Let us understand by the definition. A sample selected by listing a population sequentially and choosing members at a regular interval. Say for example, this is the whole population, we want to survey upon it, and out of this whole population we have find out the sample is found out on the basis of every third member will be included in the sample. So the one is selected, out of this one, two are left, again third is selected, again two are left and third is selected, again two are left and third is selected. So every third person is selected. So sequence is given, and out of this sequence a selection will be made on the regular interval. So interval of 2 is given here. This can be made interval of 3 also. So 3 members will be left and fourth one selected. Again 3 will be left and fourth one will be selected. This can be decided upon the requirement of sampling. So this is known as systematic sampling. So these all are the techniques of probabilistic sampling. Until now whatever we learned, these all were the techniques of probabilistic sampling. I hope you have understood them very well. Now in the second part of this session we will learn different techniques of non-probabilistic sampling. Until then, thank you, goodbye.